Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 5 of Cairo Water Week, and welcome to today's session, Infrastructure Asset Management for Sustainability. My name is Habab Taifour. I'm a lead water specialist with the World Bank. I'm based in Tunisia. Okay. Just more for logistics, I just want to say that some of the sessions and some of the presentations and the questions will be in Arabic, so should you need translation, please go ahead and pick up translation headphones on the side right. So should you need any translation, please go ahead and do so. As I said, my name is Habab Taifour. I'm a senior lead water specialist with the World Bank. I'm based in Tunisia, and I've worked with the bank in many sectors and in many regions across East Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and East and Southern Africa, predominantly in water and water infrastructure. So this is very, very exciting, and this is a very pertinent session here today, because while we talk about water and the importance of it, really how do we get water to the services that are critical to us, whether it's water supply, irrigation, dams, flood management and weirs and embankments, all of these require infrastructure. So today really is that this is very, very critical. For example, how water utilities and infrastructure networks face mounting pressures from climate change, urbanization, aging assets. So how do we deal with all of these compounding challenges that we're seeing today? Today's session is really focusing on exploring best practices, tools, strategies for sustainable asset management in the water sector, focusing on resilience, life cycle planning, and adaptive operations. We have a very exciting session here for you today with a very diverse set of panelists that span from decision makers, planners, practitioners, academia, and private sector. And I think from that, hopefully, we'll get a very diverse set of experiences on how we can manage and what kind of adaptive lessons we can adopt and adapt to different contexts. So with that, I don't want to take too long with this. I want to think that we really look at how we listen to our today's speakers, talking about strategic asset management for planning, performance, and sustainability, what kind of digital tools we can perhaps adopt and utilize, life cycle planning and costing, and how do we look at risk-based management, and then climate resilience, right? I think we would be remiss to not address that we are in a changing climate. The scenarios that we've built, some of our infrastructure is no longer what it is today, and we have to adapt accordingly. So without further ado, we have 5, as I said, dynamic panelists today. I'll introduce our first speaker. His Excellency, Mr. David Mahlabu, is the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation in South Africa. Mr. Mahlabu has had a very diverse and rich career within the public sector in South Africa, including being ministers of critical ministries such as energy. But while he's had a diverse one, his background is very much a water background and comes from a water family. So very much looking forward to. So Mr. Mahlabu, welcome.
Thank you so much to Your Excellency's Program Director. And just to give some few thoughts on the idea that has been given here. Firstly, is to appreciate that the world population has grown, and it has grown exponentially. And many population in our various countries has grown. And by the year 2050, our population will be closer to 55% to the current population we have. Equally, the economies of the world have grown. In terms of the world GDP, it has grown. And when it has grown, it places more pressure on infrastructure or the network industries. In the main, many countries and many communities, there's been an underinvestment on infrastructure equivalent to the growth. In other words, we are dealing with an infrastructure deficit. Many industries in terms of the various sectors of our economy, they will want infrastructure so that they can be in a position to thrive. But more importantly, the population is dependent on infrastructure for access to basic services. We know that in terms of the United Nations statistics, when it comes to SDGs related to water, we have to be in a position to remember that more than 2.4 billion people don't have access to water. Some of them, they don't have access to the infrastructure at all. And then 3.6 billion have no access to sanitation services and infrastructure. Therefore, the question of financing is an important issue, because financing for infrastructure, whether you follow the infrastructure doctrine, we must agree where will the money come from. This discussion today must address the financing options of infrastructure. It must also address the implementation option for infrastructure and the management option for infrastructure. Globally, we are looking at $7 trillion just for the infrastructure related to water and sanitation. In our own continent, we are looking at $30 billion gap per annum, in which in South Africa, just recently, when we had Africa Investment Program, just to respond to issues of water and sanitation, we were able to raise between 10 to 12 billion dollars. And it's just a drop in an ocean if you look at the question of underinvestment in water assets. But then there are also issues of climate change, the issues of infrastructure that is being washed away, the impact on the livelihoods, and also the impact around the question of issues of access to service delivery. What is mostly important is that there must also be the capacity and the institutions to do the work. Because without an institutional architecture, institutions that are responsive, that are going to be able to adapt, we are going to have problems. In our own country, for an example, around the question of water resource management and security, in other words, the guarantee and assurance that our country will not be able to run out of water, our decision was to ensure that our infrastructure has to be in a position to address the question to say, how do we harvest water? In terms of the dams, the canals, in terms of our water master plan, we are harvesting a lot of surface water from the runoff, of which our design capability in terms of assets and infrastructure is at 17 billion cubic meters per annum. But our yield is running at 15 billion cubic meters per annum. In other words, we should be saying that we are running out of water. We are not. But there are areas of localized deficit. Therefore, as a country, we are rolling out the biggest infrastructure program to build more dams, so that even if we're a water-scarce country, we can, with our neighbors. There are many dams we have, like the Orange Senko River system, the Komati system, the Limpopo system, with our neighboring countries. We go to the markets and we look for that particular money, because money from the fiscus is not adequate. We use an SPV called the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority. Over the last 30 years, major dams have been built in South Africa, and we are in a position to go and gather bonds from the market, and we've been in a position to replace that particular infrastructure. But the state, going forward, because we have our own national assets, dams that are more than 5,000 in South Africa, others are privately owned, others are owned by the national government, will be able to use that particular fleet. We go to the markets, ensure that we are able to raise more money, so that the infrastructure expansion can be in a position to ensure that we meet our growth projections and aspirations. We meet the challenges of urbanization, but we also meet the issues of the demand in terms of the growth of the economy, because if those network industries are not being attended to, it's going to be a problem. But equally, we also sell water to various users. When we sell water from various users, we have we call it water use charges. In other words, you must have a pricing strategy where there is a developmental charge for the water, there is a bulk charge and a retail charge. That money that you are actually able to, when people, there is an off-take, whether domestical or industrial, we are able to have a certain portion, you repay your creditors. The other portion, you ring fence it, you invest back into the asset, and then the other option, you can be in a position to deal with issues of your CAPEX and OPEX. One of the most important things about asset life management, there are only three basics around the philosophy. Philosophy number one is a baseline phase where you deal with issues of master planning. Planning for infrastructure, it takes time. You go there, there's geotechnical assessment, feasibility studies, implementation readiness studies, but there are also regulatory issues. You need an environment impact assessment to be done. You need a water use license. You have to deal with issues of servitude. Planning is the most important aspect, including material acquisition, issues of procurement, project planning, and capital execution. It's the most important step that those of us who are working in infrastructure must follow that doctrine. The second component is operation and maintenance phase. In other words, you ensure that the asset, at minimum, it achieves its original designs and estimated usefulness. Most of our countries, they neglect this important aspect. Assets are there, they are being derelict, they are aging, water is running in the streets, in other words, non-revenue water, illegal connection, including issues of thieving. It's an important aspect because if you don't attend to this matter, issues of reliability, the availability of the asset all the time will be tested. Issues around your strategic users, whether energy, whether industries, you can't guarantee them what we call it assurance of supply, which is assurance of availability. In our country, the number is at 99.5% in terms of assurance of availability. But then if there's a problem, you have to have the capacity to respond and respond timelessly. Then on asset management, cycle and philosophy, there's an issue called end-of-life phase. In other words, you must have master planning. How can you extend the life or the capacity of an asset through selective renewal? Because if the population grows, you can be able to do selective renewal, you replenish, you are doing an augmentation, but also at the very same time, some of the assets are dead assets. You need to be in a position to dispose them. Because if you don't dispose the asset, depending on the technology, some countries, at a particular point, they use asbestos as a technology, when you actually have to use other piping that are there. On implementation, South Africa, we've made a choice. Whether in terms of water security, we're using our water utilities. In other words, you have the SPV, we are doing a South African National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency that has been signed into law, where all these assets will come in them, is ring fence, you can go to the market, you can be able to have that particular ability at risk that you can be able to do that. But the risk you have is the issue of how to actually implement the social component of the asset. In terms of water services provision, we have the bulk water treatment works that are normally done by our water boards and local government itself. And in our country, around asset management, we're also allowing private sector to come in a form of concessions, but also in a form of build, own, operate, train, and transfer, without the state losing its own capability. When it comes to financing, traditional financing remains important. In other words, from rates and taxes, from the sale of the water, from the issues of the pricing strategy, is an important matter, but there must be a discipline around the ring fencing of those financial resources. Then there's an issue of blended finance, where we have the component of the public sector, but the private sector those collateral in terms of grants and subsidies, you then be in a position to stimulate the market. Then you have the private sector financing, especially while mining economy, but also agricultural economy. Mining, they play an important role around the issues of funding of infrastructure, including the wastewater systems that they are doing there. Therefore, the access to blue bonds and green bonds is important. Asset management must also be embedded on an idea that nobody must be left behind. In other words, building water-sensitive and vibrant communities, where in terms of how you do disaster preparedness, disaster response, civic education, indigenous knowledge system, and the advancement in research, science, and development is an important component when you want to have sustainability. Sustainability is about planet, it's about people, it's about the economy, and more importantly, it's about security. Therefore, we have to close the gap around infrastructure, investment, management, and development if we are going to achieve the deficit we have for 2030. Whereas the investments that must be made and the capabilities to be built for the year 2050, we must triple our own contributions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think you brought up some very interesting points in terms of how South Africa is managing its assets, and anchoring it through financing is a very important one, right? It's that as we look at the financing, how we plan, we manage, and the whole life cycle. I think the example that you brought up of having a limited liability company, of how you manage your assets in an integral way, is also a very interesting case study, and I hope we can delve into that a bit more. With that, I'd like to bring forward our next presenter. We have Dr. Nasruddin Ubaid, who is the director of the Arab Center for the Study of Arid Zones and Drylands. Dr. Nasruddin has had a very distinguished career in academia, as well as being a key expert engaging with UN agencies, private sector, and multilaterals. So,
ما في مشكلة. أعطيه هو. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وأصحابه أجمعين. الحقيقة يعني بالبداية لا بد لي أن أشكر أخي ديفيد على هذا النموذج الرائع الذي تحدث عنه في جنوب أفريقيا. في كل من يتحدث ممكن عن الدولة التي يعمل بها، لكن أنا كمنظمة عربية ذراع فني لجامعة الدول العربية تعمل في المناطق الجافة وشبه الجافة، نعمل على مستوى الوطن العربي وخارج الوطن العربي، ما في حتى الدول الأفريقية. والآن لدينا عدد كبير من الخبراء موجودين في أفريقيا، لأنه في تشابه كبير في البنى التحتية والمناخ والظروف المختلفة فيما بيننا. فنحن كمنظمة عربية تأسست عام 1968، كانت مساحة الوطن العربي اللي هي مناطق جافة وشبه جافة لا تتجاوز 50%، وكانت يستشعر القادة العرب بهذا الموضوع الحيوي والهام جدا من تلك المرحلة بالتغيرات المناخية والجفاف وندرة المياه في هذه المناطق اللي معظمها هشة وصحراوية وشبه صحراوي. وبالتالي نحن نعمل على النهوض بالقطاع الزراعي بشقيه النباتي والحيواني والتكيف مع التغيرات المناخية على مستوى المنطقة العربية، ونتعاون ونتعاضد مع كل مراكز البحوث في دولة المقر سوريا وفي المراكز البحوثية في الدول العربية جميعا، وأيضا مع الهيئات والمنظمات محققين أهداف التنمية المستدامة 15-30، اللي أنا أعتقد بأن الهدف ال17 اللي هو من أهم الأهداف هو الذي يجمع كل الأهداف من مكافحة الفقر إلى الهدف السادس هي المياه. ونحن نعلم تماما بموضوع المياه. هنا مدير مكتب الصحة العالمية يقول بأن الفرد بحاجة إلى أكثر من 1600 متر مكعب من المياه، وسمعتم في الأمس واليوم كثير من الإحصائيات والأرقام التي تنذر بخطر شديد جدا على منطقتنا العربية. فأنا من ضمن إدارة الأصول مهم جدا للغاية الحقيقة، يعني ليس الصيانة فقط، وإنما في ضغوط شديدة على السدود والمحطات المعالجة وشبكات الري وخطوط الإمداد. فتغير المناخ، التوسع العمراني وزيادة الطلب، تقدم الأصول وتراجعها، وأيضا أكساد قام بمجموعة كبيرة من المشاريع التي تخفف من الضغط على هذه الأصول. وأعتقد سأركز بشكل كبير على موضوع نشر وحصاد المياه في المنطقة العربية. وعدنا مجموعة كبيرة من المشاريع التي ينفذها أكساد في المنطقة العربية. وأعتقد أنا دائما الصور هي أبلغ بكثير الحقيقة مما نتحدث، لأنه نحن كمؤسسة علمية بحثية تطبيقية تقوم على إقامة مشاريع تنموية في كل الدول العربية. ولأول مرة في القمم العربية في دورتها 31 ب 22 في الجزائر كلفت الجامعة العربية بوضع استراتيجية الأمن الغذائي، وأيضا اعتمدت هي واستراتيجية الأمن المائي، البرنامج التنفيذي للأمن المائي، في قمة العراق العادية وأيضا القمة الاقتصادية والتنموية. واعتمد مجموعة من المشاريع التي تلعب دورا كبيرا بالتخفيف الضغط على البنى التحتية للأصول المائية والمستدامة في المنطقة العربية من خلال مجموعة من الأنشطة والمشاريع التي كلفت فيها أكساد لنعمل مع كل المنظمات العربية والدولية على الحد من هذه التغيرات المناخية. فنحن نفذنا كما قلت عشرات المشاريع في مجال إدارة الأصول، مشاريع حصاد المياه، الزراعة الحافظة، الخرائط الهيدرولوجية والنمذجة، وأيضا رفع كفاءة الري الذي سأتحدث عنه. وهذا أعتقد من أهم القضايا التي نعمل عليها، خاصة في الإدارة المتكاملة للأصول، ليس فقط صيانتها وليس فقط تأمين التمويل اللازم لها، وإنما أيضا من خلال التكيف ومع هذه التغيرات المناخية الشديدة. وأنا أقول بأكساد، ترون أمامكم الصور، يمكن عم يسرع كثير الأخ مشان الوقت، أنا عامل شي 50 سلايد لكن الوقت لا يسعفنا ال10 دقائق لنا، لكن سأتجاوز كما تجاوز أخي ديفيد في عرضه أيضا، لأنه مواضيع مهمة جدا وتكون على مستوى كل الوطن العربي. نحن كأكساد ضد السدود العملاقة التي تقام في المنطقة العربية، لأن مخاطرها كثيرة، الجفاف اللي صار والأمطار والقلة ومنابع الأنهار الموجودة هي خارج المنطقة العربية لعبت دور، التبخر الكبير اللي أصبح في السدود. فنحن مع السدات المائية، مع البحيرات، مع الحفائر التي تجدونها أمامكم، والمشاريع التي ينبغي علينا أن نقوم فيها في المنطقة. عملنا عشرات السدات ودرء الفيضانات في لبنان، في سوريا، البحيرات الجبلية، وأعتقد في مشاريع الآن راح نشوفها نحن يعني بالنتائج التي توصلنا عليه. لكن هو أمامي يضع فقط مشروع مرسى مطروح اللي أنا أعتقده هو وسيوة هو من أهم المشاريع التي يقوم المركز العربي بتنفيذها في الدول العربية. مشروع صبحة وصبحية والصرة في الأردن، مشروع حوض الحماد في كل من سوريا والمملكة العربية مساحته 160 ألف كيلومتر مربع، وهم من المشاريع الرائدة والناجحة جدا في المنطقة العربية. عاد التنوع الحيوي، وفرنا كثير في الأصول وإدارتها في المنطقة في هذه المناطق. إذا نحن يجب أن نركز على البحيرات الجبلية ذات الطاقة الاستيعابية للمياه 50,000 100,000 متر مكعب، أخذناها من تونس وفق مهام المركز العربي، هو نقل الميزة النسبية لأي مشروع ناجح في أي دولة عربية إلى الدول العربية الأخرى. نقلناه إلى لبنان وعملنا أكثر من 15 سد بالتعاون مع الفاو والUNDP، وأيضا نقلناه السودان، نظام الحفائر الموجود في السودان، ونقلناه إلى العراق. وأيضا إلى ليبيا. وبالتالي هذه المشاريع عم تعطي استقرار للسكان الريف وتعطي إنتاجية زيادة من خلال الري التكميلي الموجود في هذه المناطق في الساحل السوري. أعتقد الصور ما عم تتواكب نحن وياها مشان العدد الكبير الموجود بين إيدي. استطعنا نحن من خلال البيوت البلاستيكية أن يزيد الإنتاج 400%، وأن نقل المياه يوفر من خلال عشرات الكيلومترات الصهاريج ذات التكلفة العالية جدا، وبالتالي تجميع المياه في بحيرات جبلية غير مكلفة وأيضا غير مستهلكة للمياه من خلال التبخر اللي يكون فيها، وتجميع على 100-120 ملم ممكن أن تملأ لأكثر من أمر هذه السدات المائية أو هذه الحفائر الموجودة الآن في العراق كنموذج يحتذى به، موجودة أيضا في سوريا وموجودة في السودان. عندنا نحن منطقة في السودان عملنا عليها مشروع تثبيت الكثبان الرملية. أنا دائما أحط الصورة قبل وبعد، انظر إلى الصورة الموقع قبل وبعد اتخاذ هذه التقنيات البسيطة جدا والمكلفة، ومن خلال بناء القدرات ومشاركة السكان المحليين. جمط هذه المنطقة التي هي أمامكم هي شمال غرب كردفان. نحن نفذنا مشروع ضخم جدا في السودان هو الخارطة التفاعلية والخارطة المثلى لاستخدامات الأراضي التي نستطيع من خلالها، هي خارطة للاستثمار. مسحنا كل الغطاء النباتي، الغطاء الثروة الحيوانية، تصنيف الترب هناك بالتعاون مع أكثر من 100 خبير سوداني، والآن سلمنا المرحلة الثالثة ل 13 مليون هكتار هي النيل الأزرق والنيل الأبيض ومشروع الجزيرة. كلها تلعب دورا رئيسيا وآسيا من خلال التخفيف من الضغوط على إدارة البنى التحتية للمياه والمستدام الحقيقة يعني. فلذلك علينا جميعا أن نركز على هذه القضية. والآن يمكن أنا طرحت في الأمم المتحدة أو في المؤتمر الماضي في جنيف بأن تجرأت الآن الدول العربية، الدول العالم كلها تقول على درء الفيضانات ونشر وحصاد المياه بين الدول. هذا لأول مرة يتم طرحه، والآن يجب أن نعمل عليه بشكل كبير جدا من أجل الاستفادة من كل قطرة ماء. عندنا مشروع نحن في سوريا عملناه مع وزارة الزراعة، ونشكر معالي الوزير لدعمه ودعم الحكومة السورية لمنظمة أكساد اللي مقرها هي في سوريا، والتي يعني يقدم لنا كل الدعم والبنى التحتية واللوجستيات والخبرات الفنية التي تعتبر نموذجا يحتذى به، وننقل كل هذه الخبرات وهذه المشاريع الناجحة في دولة المقر إلى كل الدول العربية مجانا الحقيقة من قبل أكساد، إيمانا من سوريا بالعمل العربي المشترك. الآن أنا يعني ما تأخذوني، يعني أنا كتير مضغوط لأنه الوقت كتير عندي، أنا شي 100 سلايد يعني موجودة بين إيدي، وكلها مشاريع يعني نموذجية موجودة في المنطقة العربية. أريد أن أركز قليلا على مطروح وعلى سيوة. الحقيقة مشروع مطروح هذا المشروع عملناه نحن وزارة الزراعة تنمية واستدامة، وأيضا عملناه على مرحلتين مع الفاو، وموجود أخينا نقيب المهندسين الزراعيين الدكتور سيد خليفة، وهو كان مشرف على هذا المشروع المهم مع مركز بحوث الصحراء. استطعنا أن نعمل أكثر من 1200 بئر تجميعي للمياه بسعة 100-150 مستخدمين نظام GIS والإشعار عن بعد لحصاد هذه المياه، وبالتالي تبعد المنطقة يعني أكثر من 30 كيلومتر عن مطروح عن الساحل، وبالتالي استطعنا هناك أن نزرع الزراعات التكميلية الموجودة كالسيسبان وأيضا البونيكوم الذي يعطي أكثر من 20-60 طن بالهكتار الواحد خلال عدة حشات موجودة فيه. وهذا نوع من أنواع البونيكوم اللي طوروا أكساد بشكل كبير جدا، ويساعد على التنمية الريفية واستقرار البدو هناك والرعاة، وأيضا يؤدي إلى توفير المياه للري التكميلي حتى للخضار والذي هم وأيضا الأشجار المثمرة كالفستق الحلبي والتين. وعملنا نظام القبيونات والجابات. هذا النظام هو نظام قديم جدا طورناه وعملنا عليه، ومنها سدود الإعاقة، وهذه أعتقد عملت دورا رئيسيا وأساسيا بأن تجرأنا وجربنا أصناف أكساد القمح. نحن عندنا أكثر من 87 صنف من القمح والشعير المتحدية والتي للجفاف والتغيرات المناخية. هذا الصنف في المناطق المثالية يعطي 10 طن، في سوريا في منطقة حينة عطى 10 طن في الهكتار، في المملكة العربية السعودية عطى أكثر من 7 إلى 8 طن في الهكتار، وهو قمح قاسي مرغوب جدا من أجل إنتاج المعكرونة، ويكون في المناطق شديدة الجفاف والتي لا تحتاج إلى كمية كبيرة من المياه. عطى أكثر من 5 طن. ما بعرف إذا الدكتور يحط لنا على الصورة يشوف القمح الموجود اللي الروى ري تكميلي، والقمح الذي على 129 ميلي فقط مليمتر من الأمطار في هذه المنطقة. والآن يمكن زرناها نحن مرات عديدة هذه الصور، الدكتور شايل لي الصور كلياتها يعني مشان يحافظ على الوقت، الدكتور إيهاب مدير إدارة الموارد المياه في أكساد. وبالتالي كنت أنا كتير حاب الصور تكون، لأن الصور كتير تعبر أكثر مما نتكلم عنه، وأتمنى أن يعرض هذا الوثيقة يعني توزع على كل الأخوة الخبراء والفنيين والدول المشاركة في هذا المؤتمر للاستفادة منها، ونحن جاهزين نقدم خبراتنا في هذا المجال. منطقة أم جمط كانت منطقة شديدة الجفاف الحقيقة، وكانت منطقة متصحرة، وكانت الرمال حتى المدارس تغمرها، لكن بعد أن قمنا بمشاركة السكان المحليين واعتماد على المرأة هناك، وعملنا مجموعة من المشاتل التي لا تحتاج الحقيقة، الآن انتقلت هذه المنطقة من قرية أم جمط وسميت أم القرى نتيجة الاستقرار اللي فيها، وزرناها مرات عديدة، ونحاول أن نعممها على كل المناطق في السودان الشقيق والغالي على قلوبنا، واللي هو مصدر ومنبع الأمن الغذائي لأمتنا العربية جميعا، حيث استطعنا أن نثبت بأن هناك أكثر من 9 مليون هكتار قابل لزراعة القمح، وبالتالي أكثر من 40 مليون طن من القمح سنويا ممكن أن تنتج بتكاليف بسيطة في السودان، مع أن الدول العربية تنتج 28 مليون طن وتحتاج سنويا إلى 30 مليون طن من قمح الخبز. مشروع الجبل البشري في سوريا من المشاريع الرائعة جدا الحقيقة، في منطقة ترتفع 600 ملم عن سطح البحر، وبالتالي جفاف شديد جدا، كمية الأمطار لا تزيد عن 40 إلى 50. استطعنا نحن والجي آي زد والبي جي آر والحكومة السورية أيضا أنه خلال 3 سنوات المنطقة تعود إلى غطاء النباتي والتنوع الحيواني النباتي والحيواني، وتثبت الكثبان الرملية، وتنزل الأيام الغبارية والرملية من 46 يوم إلى 6 أيام خلال فترة هذا إنشاء وهذا المشروع الذي نحن نريد أن ننقله إلى كل البلاد العربية. الآن نحن بالنسبة لنا بأكساد الحقيقة يعني أدخلنا الصبار الأملس اللي ناجح جدا في المغرب العربي، وفي كأحدى الوسائل لتثبيت التربة وأيضا لاستقرار السكان في المناطق في الدول العربية. أدخلناه على المملكة العربية السعودية، على جمهورية مصر العربية، وعلى الأردن. الآن الأردن زرعنا مئات الهكتارات في الأردن، لا يحتاج إلى مياه، قليلة جدا المياه في بداية زراعته. 2 إنتاجيته عالية جدا، يوفر 70% من يوفر أكثر من 70% كأعلاف ناشف للحيوانات، وفي نفس الوقت اللي زيت الصبار يعمل على إنتاج معامل له أكثر من $10,000 للكيلوغرام واحد، وبالتالي مطلوب بشكل كبير في أوروبا. فهذا موضوع ناجح جدا يجب أن نعممه على كل الدول العربية، وسوريا متقدمة في هذا المجال. وزارة الزراعة من خلال مشروع الثروة، تطوير الثروة الحيوانية وتأمين الأعلاف الخضراء لها، وبالتالي يجب أن تستفيد منه كل الدول العربية، ومن خلال أيضا ليست فقط الحفائر، وإنما من خلال المشاريع اللي هي الطرق الهلالية بالحجارة، الطرق الكنتورية عملناها مع وزارة الزراعة مديرية البحوث في سوريا على الزيتون. زادت إنتاجية الزيتون في سلمية ومناطق أخرى، أعطى أكثر من 30% زيادة في الإنتاج. إذن لا بد لنا أن نركز بشكل أساسي وكبير على حصاد المياه والاستفادة من كل قطرة ماء. نحن عملنا دراسة ل 13 دولة عربية على رفع كفاءة الري. رفع كفاءة الري وجدنا نحن في المنطقة العربية أكثر من 100 مليار متر مكعب من المياه فاقدة، وهذه تذهب هدرا وغير مكلفة. لماذا نذهب إلى تحلية مياه البحر؟ أنا شوي صريح زيادة. تحلية مياه البحر نستخدمها للشرب، نحن أكثر من 75 ل 85% من المياه تذهب، كلكم تعلمون، تذهب إلى قطاع الزراعة. رفع كفاءة الري نحن لحد الآن بين 20 و30 ولا تتجاوز 40%. فنحن عندنا 100 مليار، أفضل ما نتجه باتجاه تحلية مياه البحر المكلفة للغاية إلى الآن أكثر من نص دولار ودولار، وإذا بدنا نعمل البنى التحتية وخطوط الإمداد تكلف أكثر. دقيقتين أنسى مدام دكتورة، بس دقيقتين، لأنه أنا كثير عندي قضايا، بس يعني قصص نجاح حقيقية في أكساد يجب أن نطلع عليها كل خبرائنا وفنيين وأصحاب القرار للاستفادة، ونحن جاهزين نقدمها لكل الدول العربية. فنحن أبدا ما نروح على تحلية مياه البحر المكلفة جدا. وإلى الآن، وقلنا المرة الماضية أنه نحن يجوز صار في تطوير، كانت 6 دولار 3 دولار دولار 50 سنت الآن، لكنها إلى الآن لا نستطيع أن نستخدمها في الزراعة. وتحدث عنها معالي وزير الزراعة الدكتور أمجد دبر السوري في مداخلته في الأمس، بأنه نحن الآن نتركها للفترة الزمنية القادمة عندما تنخفض، لأنه التكاليف عالية على المزارعين، وبالتالي الغذاء تكون فاتورة الغذاء فاتورة عالية جدا. وبالتالي ممكن تحلية مياه البحر، المياه الغير تقليدية. مصر متقدمة جدا، مصر تنتج أكثر من 20-25 مليار. الأصول وإدارة الأصول، مصر متقدمة جدا في هذا، عندها أكثر من، كما تحدث بالأمس وزير الموارد المائية، أكثر من 50-55 ألف مسافة الخطوط الأصول المائية اللي هي خطوط الإمداد في مياه الري، ومتقدمين في معالجة المياه، الصرف الزراعي، الاقتصاد المدور، المياه العادمة واستخداماتها في الأشجار المتعددة الأغراض، استخدام النباتات الطبية والعطرية. الآن نحن عندنا الزعفران، وأنا كنت حاط سلايد على الزعفران مساحة قليلة جدا اسمه الذهب الأحمر، ومطلوب في الدول الأوروبية وفي العالم العربي. ممكن 1 دلم أو نصف الدان بيعطي أكثر من 10,000 دولار. الآن بدأنا ننشره في الدول العربية ونتوسع في زراعته مع كل الدول العربية الراغبة في ذلك، وممكن ينجح في كل المناطق ولا يحتاج إلى مياه إلا كمية قليلة جدا. ممكن الواحد حتى على من خلال الآبار الرومانية، من خلال مشروع سيوة، المشروع الناجح جدا اللي عملناه نحن وزارة الزراعة ومركز بحوث الصحراء. هذا المشروع يمكن نحن نفتخر فيه ونعتز فيه. أول بدأنا بالتثبيت الميكانيكي للتربة، بعدين التثبيت الحيوي للتربة من خلال الاستفادة من المياه النادرة والموجودة هناك. وبالتالي الآن صار هناك معامل للنخيل والتمر وأيضا الزيتون ومعاصر الزيتون، وصار مشروع نفتخر ونعتز في جميع. الآن عندنا مجموعة حزمة كبيرة من المشاريع نتيجة قصص النجاح الحقيقية مع الطيران، مع وادي الجديد، محافظة الوادي الجديد، مع مطروح، مع سيناء. هذه المشاريع كلها تعمل على ترشيد واستخدامات هذه المياه، وبالتالي نستطيع أن نتوسع عموديا وأفقيا في القطاع الزراعي في كل منطقتنا العربية. لا ننسى بناء القدرات، لا ننسى البرامج المتقدمة جدا اللي عم نشتغل عليها. نحن النمذجة الرياضية والسحب الآمن للمياه الجوفية، عملنا أكثر من 14 نموذج للمياه في سوريا مستخدمين في الذكاء الاصطناعي وأيضا الاستشعار عن بعد والبرامج المتقدمة جدا لكيفية ما هي المياه المتوفرة لدينا، وكيف نستطيع أن نديرها بشكل الأمثل للاستفادة من كل قطرة مياه موجودة في المياه الجوفية، وأيضا للأجيال القادمة. نحن أنا سمعت في الأمس بعضهم يريد أن يحفر بئر 1000 متر. هذه المياه ليست ملك لنا فوحدنا، وإنما هي للأجيال القادمة. فإذا هناك حزمة من العوامل المختلفة وقصص النجاح كلها تعمل كلها سويا مع بعضها البعض من أجل المحافظة على هذه الأصول وتحقيق الأمن الغذائي وتقليص الفجوة الغذائية وتوفير المياه لنا وللأجيال القادمة إن شاء الله. أعتذر أن أطلت وشكرا لكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Shukran jazilan, Dr. Nasruddin, and thank you very much. A very powerful presentation on the role of operational research in terms of looking at how we manage infrastructure. And when we think about infrastructure, let's not just think about big dams and large amounts of concrete, but aspects such as water harvesting, combined with effective agronomic soil and water practices are really, really powerful and can have some very immense and powerful results. So thank you for that. I think this is very, with that, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, Mr. Mohammed Dawood from the National Water Research Center in Egypt and also in the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi. Very much looking forward to it.
صباح الخير أو السلام عليكم. دي أحيانا بتبقى مشكلة إن البوليتيشن يبقوا مع التكنيشن مع الساينتست. حق الساينتست بيضيع. بس على أي حال، والدكتور كمان ناصر قال لك احنا مش عايزين تحلية وأنا هتكلم عن التحلية. فمش عارف بقى انتوا هتستوعبوا اللي أنا هقوله ولا إيه، بس في آخر المحاضرة هتأكدوا إن أنا اللي بقوله برضه صح. صباح الخير عليكم جميعا. Your Excellency, Dr. David, Dr. Nasser, and our esteemed colleagues, today I will speak about the management of the assets and the infrastructure, especially when we do need to improve the using of non-conventional water resources. As have been mentioned here, we are in Arab region, we are an arid region. All of you are, we don't have a lot of conventional non-renewable water resources, and there is a big decline in the per capita water resources and the drop. In some countries like Egypt, we are now below 560. In GCC, we are far below 50 cubic meter per capita. So there is a big demand and a big need for finding another alternative water resources. And also there is a big gaps between the supply and the demand. And the issue how we can balance between supply and the demand in the future. And the only solution is going for non-conventional water resources. And unfortunately, to be fair with you also, rainfall harvesting, building dams, or collecting water in the arid region is not enough, especially in the areas which we have also rainfall, by the way. Like GCC region, we don't have rainfall. The rainfall intensity is far below 50 millimeter per year. And the land is sandy dune area, flat area, which is very difficult to even to make some projects for dams or harvesting the rainfall. So the only solution is to go for non-conventional water resource. And there is a clear interlink between the water, food, and the energy in this region, because I need water to produce food, I need food for feeding the culture or the society, I need energy to produce both food and the energy, and unfortunately in our region we are not using food for energy. So, but there is a clear interlink, and this even nexus or interlink between these three resources will be affected by the expected climate change impacts in the future. So I have to improve it, and the only way to improve it or to go to non-conventional, including desalination, reusing of wastewater, agriculture drainage water, or sometimes even utilizing brackish and even saline groundwater, either by adding additional level of treatment by desalination or direct use for this convention. Desalination, one of the promising alternative resources in the future, and globally now we have more than 18,000 desalination plants producing about 100 million cubic meter a day. So globally we are producing between 36 billion and 37 billion cubic meter. And the investment is increasing dramatically, and it's expected to reach $35 billion yearly investment in this sector. Saudi Arabia alone investing about $16 billion, and in UAE we are expecting to reach this year $6 billion investment in adding additional capacity of infrastructure. Globally, still, the thermal technology is dominant. However, there is a big trend to go toward this reverse osmosis, and this is because of four reasons. In our region, in GCC, still 70% is coming from thermal technology, and RO is sharing with 30% only. And this is because of doubling or coupling the thermal technology to produce energy, because we have not other resources to produce energy. So why now there is a plan to diversify the energy production by using nuclear safe energy or by using solar or wind energy. But globally, the trend is going toward this reverse osmosis. And this is because of four things. The first one, the capital cost is far below. We are speaking now in the thermal that the capital cost per cubic meter of the capacity of the unit is ranging between 1,200 to 1,600. However, if we transfer to reverse osmosis, we can minimize this cost to be between $900 to $1,200, with an average of $1,000 per cubic meter of the capacity. So this is about 40% reduction in the capital cost. The same for the energy consumption. For the thermal, we are speaking about 15 to 19 or 21 kilowatt equivalent, because we are using thermal, kilowatt equivalents of electricity to produce 1 cubic meter. In the reverse osmosis, we can speak about 4 to 5 or maximum 6 if we are using the feed water from the sea, or we can go a little bit down to 3 kilowatt hours per cubic meter if we are using or utilizing brackish water. So the huge dramatic. But the issue is that in the GCC region and some Arab region, the thermal technology is used mainly for producing electricity, because I need electricity for RO, I'm not producing energy. And the water is considered as a byproduct, by the way, in the cogeneration system and not the main product. So the water comes as a main product. Meanwhile, also the carbon footprint is far less if we are using reverse osmosis, because we are speaking about 0.7 kilogram equivalent of carbon dioxide to 1.1, 1.2. If I transfer to thermal, this will just sometimes, especially if the low efficient technology, it could jump up to 7 kilograms equivalent of carbon dioxide per cubic meter, which is a big carbon footprint. The environmental impacts still, if we are going to thermal technology, I need to add some chemicals. I need to discharge the brine back to environment, either to sea or inland, whatever. And in the thermal, I need additional water for cooling to dilute the brine water with the thermal to be a maximum 5 centigrade plus the ambient water in the marine to be able to be discharged or to monitor. It needs a monitor and also. So we are now trying to transfer desalinated. Of course, do we need desalination? Yes. In some countries, the desalination is the main strategic water resources, like GCC countries. We are producing about 53% out of the global production. And how the issue is how to manage or to balance between the advantage and disadvantage. I need desalination, and also there is economic constraints, environmental impacts, how I can balance. And this is the future target. I will give you an example. Dr. Nasser said we are not in any need to use it in agriculture, but unfortunately in Saudi Arabia, I'm a consultant now for the Ministry of Water, Agriculture, Environment, and Saudi, and we are building a big project to use desalinated water for agriculture production. The same here, this map from United Arab Emirates, that there is a plan to provide about 23,000 farms with desalinated water with a cost of about 6.4 billion Emirati dirham. $1 is equal to 3.675 Emirati dirham. So we are speaking mostly about something like $2 billion investment in using desalination for agriculture, because this is the only alternative that we have at present. The same, could the desalinated water could be successful or a better resources for agriculture? Yes and no. No, if I will compare it with the conventional water resources, surface water, groundwater, even brackish water, or drainage, agriculture drainage water, or treated wastewater even. Because the agriculture, the treated wastewater is costing less than $0.3 for the treatment. If we are speaking to compare it with alternative resource like desalination, it will not be comparable. But from my point of view, there is 4 criteria. If it have been achieved, I can go for desalination for agriculture. The first one, a very efficient technology for desalination to minimize the capital cost, operational cost, and energy consumption and the environment. And to be fair with you, up to date, however, there is many emerging technology, but the only technology available in the market is RO, membrane-based technology. So I have, if I consider the membrane-based technology RO at present with a cost of about $0.4 per cubic meter at the level of the production, if you add some losses, transmission lines, distribution, pumping, blah, 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 it will jump sometimes to less than $1 or $1. It could be used, this 1 cubic meter, $1 1 cubic meter with a price of $1 if I use efficient agriculture technology like green hydroponic, aeroponic, greenhouses, shade houses. The second, if I use it only not for all crops, but for cash crops only. And the fourth one, which is very important, if I have a market. I cannot use it to compare with alternative agriculture system in the open field, in all the valleys and all the woods and all the agriculture. It's not comparable. Only if I have a market outside, sometimes a country to export the food outside or these products outside. And sometimes some people confused, and because this is mentioned many times. In Spain, they are using desalination. In Morocco, they are using desalination. In Australia, they are using desalination. In Malta, they are using, yes and no. In Australia, I visit Sundrop project, which is one of the famous projects or most common projects using desalination. They are producing one crop, which is tomato. And they are producing it to cover 40% of the need of the southwest of Australia with a price of 1 kilo tomato produced from this system, $2. So if I'm producing, if I have a market with $2, the same, by the way, for Morocco, they are producing blueberry, cherry, and this strawberry, and they have a market in Europe. So it's fine. But if I'm speaking about in our region, a kilo tomato was less than $110, it is very difficult. Sorry, 10 cent dollar or something like that. It's very difficult to compare with it. So it is yes and no. And the one issue is, and the most promising field is, to lower the capital cost and for the infrastructure in the desalination and to increase the water productivity. I cannot say I will use desalinated for in water productivity in Egypt. The last published figures by the Planning Institute and the Ministry of Planning, they are speaking about 7 Egyptian livres. So I cannot say I will use agriculture or the desalinated water in such water productivity. I need to improve the water productivity to lowest the desalination cost to meet or to save profits for the farmers at the middle and to save the food. The same, by the way, for the wastewater treatment. I have to improve more and the investment in building infrastructure to transfer the wastewater from where it's treated to the nearest demand center to be used. And unfortunately, in our region now, only 40% of treated wastewater is utilized. Even in advanced technology like we used in GCC. In GCC, all treatments are up to a tertiary level. However, 60% is still discharged back to environment, either to marine in Arabian Gulf or to inland areas, in wadis. And so I have to improve it. And this is showing us two mega projects have been implemented recently in United Arab Emirates. The first one we implemented in Dubai Road to carry out about 140,000 cubic meter a day of tertiary treated wastewater. And the second with a capacity of 250,000. But have a look to the cost and the required infrastructure. You need to build a 1,200 millimeter diameter pipeline, 35 kilometers away from the treatment plant to the nearest demand center. The first one cost us 220 million Emirati dirham, which is about $100 million. And the second, 760, because it is going against the topography, and we need to pump and to build pumping station, distribution tanks, and others. So the cost is jumping to 760 million Emirati dirham, only to provide 4,200 farms with tertiary treated wastewater. So the investment is huge, and the best way, this is showing us our two cases from Egypt, Bahr al-Baqar, al-Mahsama, and recently مشروع الدلتا الجديدة, New Delta. So also we invested, but for reclaiming or treating the agriculture water. And it is a huge investment. The second option should be how I will manage all this infrastructure. It is not just I build the capitals and I will leave it in the middle of the desert or in the middle of nowhere. I need to manage. I mean to operate in a better way, and we have to put a very integrated and holistic approach to achieve the target for implementing and investing in these capitals. And this is, I put here for you a plan with the 5 pillars, how I can manage this very efficiently, but because Dr. she's looking to me to finish, so I will leave this with you, and then we can discuss it later on details. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Dawood. I think very, very interesting presentation, thinking very much about the circular economy, thinking about non-conventional water, whether it's desalination or wastewater reuse. And I think the pillars, unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to say them, but they're very, very critical in terms of how do we manage our investments? How do we manage this infrastructure? We're paying billions of dollars into these infrastructure. We want to make sure that it has a life cycle that can continue to produce. So this is equally critical, and perhaps during the panel discussion, we can get a bit more insights from him. With that, we'll move very quickly to our next speaker. Unfortunately, Dr. Mohammed Mandoor is not able to be with us, but in his place, we have Engineer Ammar al-Najjar, who is the Business Development Manager and Capacity Building at Arab Contractors for Facility Management. Bashmahandas Amr, please, over to you.
Hi everyone, it's a great pleasure to be with you today. My name is Amr, I am Engineer Amr, I am from Arab Contractor for Facility Management, one of the major company working in Egypt and in the region, in MENA region and in Africa. As everybody know, our topic today is innovation solutions and the climate resilience and water sustainability. In our market, we have a huge gap between the implementation of the sustainability SDGs and the private sector. Today, I will talk with you today about 3 items. The first item is how private sector participate in sustainable initiatives in the region, especially in Egypt. Of course, I'm talking about Egypt at the beginning. The second topic, we will talk about the capacity building for the sustainability and the water sector. Okay. The third point, I will talk about it also, how we can develop the contracting, we can develop the contract in facility management that match sustainable goals. Arab Contractor, as everybody know, it's found for facility management. It's founded in 1994 with experience more than 30 years. And more than 3,000 engineers and workers we have in our company. Recently, we are managing more than 107 projects in Egypt, and we have a new branch now in Saudi Arabia. Of course, we have all the quality certificates required in the facility management field. We also do a lot of partnership with several stakeholders and companies who's working in the region. Just this year, we have been nominated and awarded with the Facility Management Firm of the Year this year from Big 5. It means we are the best facility management company in Egypt this year. Also, regarding our topic, the innovation, we have been selected and be the innovator of the year from Big 5, Egypt. Regarding the water infrastructure and sustainability, let us speak about something important in this. What is exactly the role of companies and the private sector in supporting the SDGs and sustainable goals? Actually, there is a huge gap in that. But in Arab Contractor, we start focus on this point, and we have a huge project working and supporting the sustainability. We will talk today about one of the main two projects, Bahr al-Bakr water treatment plant, that located very close to Suez Canal. The area is 155 acres with capacity with 6.5 million meter cubic per day. And this is a huge project having a Guinness record in several sectors. The most important one, it's using the ozone, the main bigger ozone generator system in the region. In Bahr al-Bakr, we are using this ozone treatment system. This is one of the most important supporting the climate resilience. This is our participation on the ground to support our climate. We are make total ozone production 625 kilogram ozone per hour. We are producing this amount of ozone, and reduce emissions, operating costs, and those one of the supporting items in sustainability. Ensure top quality treated water and solar sludge drying reduced 30% of energy. It means we are use this to support supplying the energy and minimize the cost. Sustainability achievement in this project, some of them, preventive maintenance and periodic diagnostic that not affect the environment, because we are understand the problem before it's appear, and we have monitoring the project 24/7, 24 hours every day, and we are using water several times and reuse the water. Integrated IBM Maximo system. Here we can talk also about the using the new technology and controlling the systems, which minimize the emissions in the future. We are following the sustainable pillars, the digitalization and energy efficiency and reuse. The other project, Al-Gabar Al-Asfar wastewater treatment plant, located in Cairo, and with capacity 2.5 million cubic meter per day, served 12 million people. And everybody know, one of the most important, not only the environment, also the society. And when we are talking about SDGs, society, we are serving 12 million people, providing clear water and clean water to support our community. We have using biological treatment and digesters. In digesters, this is unit that produce CH4 that we can use it as a fuel and minimize the energy cost. If we are minimizing the energy cost, it means we are support the climate and support the climate resilience. Reducing CO2 emissions, circular economy, and we are using a SCADA control system also. It means technology is there. Regarding sustainability facility management achievement in this project, of course, we are having the certificates without and the quality, and also the risk assessment, safety training, zero accident day celebration. Until this moment, we are managing and facilitate this project with zero accident. And this is one of the most important points that support sustainability. Our human, our workers is our concern. safe operation for this. It's one of the key pillars of the SDGs. Here we can compare how much we are following the aspects of sustainability. We are in Bahar Bakar focusing in water reuse and ozone-based green treatment and sustainability focusing. In Jabal Asfar, we are using the bioenergy recovery and recycle operation. In the climate resilience, in Bahr al-Bakar, we reduce chemical emission and solar power drying. In Jabal Asfar, we are having 35% CO2 reduction through biogas energy. In digital resilience, we are most of by the way, not only this project, those projects, in Arab Contractor Company for facility management, we are integrated our own IT solution and IoT solution for our projects that integrated and developed in our R&D department in our company. And last but not least, water security. We are serving 12 million citizens in Al Jabal Asfar, and in Bahr al-Bakar we are integrated sustainable 330,000 acres for agriculture. Our future vision, expanding a digital twin. Expanding digital twin in facility management is a new topic, and we have a huge demand on that topic. And already we are also developed a new IoT solution in maintenance. For example, we have developed a new sensor who can catch the vibration of the pumps in the water sector and send this feedback for the vibration on any place, in any mobile phones, in anywhere through the internet. It means we are supporting the maintenance operation and prevent maintenance in advance. Any facility management managers in the project can know and understand the problem before it comes through this vibration sensors. We are supporting circular economy and capacity building in facility management trade. And regarding capacity building, we have a huge project now focused on raise the awareness of and the capability of the workers in our company, not only in our company, also for the Egyptian market. Even we are supporting our competitors now in this field. We are creating now a center of excellency for facility management. It's a brand new center in Egypt. No one started this. We start this initiative, and we create a curriculum. From my experience, I am the one who's managing this project because I work in capacity building as a capacity building expert in KfW project with Germany before to the Egyptian government. Through this, we are supporting them. In that, we can, because of that, thank you so much, because of the time. Okay.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ammar. A really interesting conversation, I think, and very unique in terms of how technology is being used for preventative measures and management of these very sophisticated technologies and facilities. So hopefully we'll get a chance to delve a little bit more. With that, last but not least, we have Ms. Mirna Abul Ata, who is from the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction for the Arab states. I hand you the floor, and hopefully.
Thank you very much, Ms. Habab. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Before I go into the actual presentation, I'd like to first of all, there's a slide that's not there, to focus on one concept. at the beginning, how we view risk, what is risk. So this as a key concept is the function of hazard in terms of its nature and intensity, also the vulnerability and the exposure of assets and people. And we'd like to, from UNDRR, to highlight and to stress that there is no such thing as a natural disaster, that the disaster is only when all these factors in the function, the hazard, the nature of the hazard, the vulnerability, and the exposure are high, and we do not have adequate capacity to cope or manage them. So it's the choices, it's our decisions on where we inhabit, what we research, and how we build that could reduce or increase the risk of disasters. As we also know that systems are and the vital sectors are totally interdependent, and in that case, to achieve resilience means that we must understand the systemic nature of risk and the interdependencies of the systems to enhance our capacities to deal with these hazards. Otherwise, they might have cascading events causing loss and disruption. The trend globally in terms of disasters is growing. The average disaster mortality has declined since 2015 by 49%, while the number of affected people due to disasters, and those are either the injured or those who lost their lives, their livelihoods and their dwellings, has increased by 71%. We anticipate that the number of disasters per year may increase by 40% by 2030 compared to 2015. In terms of water and disaster risk reduction, so water is essential for life, and it's critical to achieve resilience in the agreed goals and targets of international agreements, whether the SDGs, the Sendai Framework, New Urban Agenda, and the Paris Agreement, and others. So water-related disasters like the floods, droughts, storms have caused most of the human and economic impact of all disasters combined, with drought being the costliest hazard in the Arab region in the last decade. In the last decade, at least 1.4 billion people have been affected by droughts and 1.6 billion by floods. In the last 50 years, floods led to economic losses of over 115 billion US dollars. With climate change intensifying water-related risks, a risk-informed decision-making and investment in preventing and reducing water-related risks is a development priority. In the political declaration adopted by member states at the high-level meeting on the midterm review of Sendai Framework implementation in 2023, member states called for sustainable, integrated, and disaster risk-informed water resource management to reduce disaster and climate risk. So to address, there are some, it's jumping from one slide to another. No worries. So to address water-related risks, it's essential that we have all stakeholders working together through a multi-hazard and multi-sectoral risk governance approach. Integrated policy frameworks are very much promoted, like integrated water resource management and its application at national and local level. And one example is to integrate disaster risk reduction into national and local water strategies, which could help countries and cities better manage and prepare for drought periods and extreme flood events. Our UNDRR commitment to the Water Action Agenda is to provide better data for water-related disasters, to leverage the principles for resilient infrastructure, and the UNDRR's stress testing tool to advance water infrastructure resiliency, and to place also water at the heart of climate action. Resilient infrastructure as a concept is the timely and efficient prevention, absorption, recovery, adaptation, and transformation of national infrastructures, essential structures and functions which have been exposed to current and potential future hazards. To implement resilience across all the disruption phases should be done through, first, collaborative risk and uncertainty management, a multi-hazard assessment, moving away from a one-hazard approach to multi-hazard, and using methods that embrace the systemic nature of national infrastructure. We work, or our focus is on strengthening the resilience of systems, so water as a system or energy or transport, through enhanced risk governance guided by Sendai Framework Target D, which aims to substantially reduce disaster damage to critical infrastructure and disruption of basic services, as well as also we are guided by SDG 9 on resilient infrastructure. So according to that, we developed, in partnership with the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the global methodology for infrastructure resilience review, which aims to increase, first of all, awareness and understanding of vulnerabilities of infrastructure and their resilience among all stakeholders, to strengthen the national capacity for risk-informed infrastructure planning and delivery, and to enhance collaboration and exchange of knowledge among the stakeholders, all of that while adapting to the country context. The methodology is a 5-step methodology, which first looks at mapping the institutional governance, the key stakeholders. So we work with the national disaster management agencies to enhance their understanding so that they can have conversations with all the other stakeholders that are responsible for infrastructure. Following that, number 2, we review existing policies and legislations to verify the alignment or the gaps in the implementation and in the sectoral regulatory mechanisms. The third, we identify the vulnerabilities through running the stress testing analysis using the UNDRR's Resilient Infrastructure Stress Tool, and that can help identify the vulnerabilities, prioritize the improvements, and gain a better understanding of the interdependencies of infrastructure systems. So for instance, if there's an event like a hurricane that causes a power cut, that the power grid blacks out, so how does that impact all the sectors, the systems of water, transport, energy, etc., and the economic interdependencies as well. So following that, we prioritize these vulnerabilities, and then we look at the principles for resilient infrastructure to apply them through a scorecard assessment to come up with a qualitative assessment report, and at the end develop an implementation plan. In terms of the principles for resilient infrastructure, so in order to not define, yet we looked at how to give some criteria for infrastructure resilience that can help all of the stakeholders, from governments, private sector, regulators, owners, or communities. So we developed, based on that, 6 principles for resilient infrastructure, and the idea is to bring all stakeholders around the table to discuss the state of infrastructure resilience and to use KPIs based on each of the key actions under each of the 6 principles. We give them a score, and we establish some sort of a baseline and identify risks, and we prioritize the improvements. One thing I wanted to highlight here is that the guidance, the global methodology for infrastructure resilience review has also looked now at key sectors. So the first sector we've developed a guidance for is the water sector. It has been tested in 2 countries globally, and maybe at the end, for time, I just wanted to give some key takeaways. First of all, infrastructure systems cannot be viewed in isolation. So resilient infrastructure requires a comprehensive risk management approach that accounts for systemic risks across interdependent sectors and brings all stakeholders together. Number two, moving from a single hazard to multi-hazard risk planning, because mostly infrastructure is designed to withstand one or two hazards, but we need to look at multi-hazards. The third is to design infrastructure that is risk-informed and adaptable. We need to combine data, hazard data from remote sensing, topography, historical disaster records, and socioeconomic and demographic data. And last, resilient infrastructure can only be achieved if we embed multi-hazard systemic risk knowledge into infrastructure planning, investment, and governance to enable communities and countries withstand the growing intensity and predictability of shocks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mirna. This has been very, very useful just to think about, again, how do we embed multi-hazard, multi-risk assessments in our planning and how we manage infrastructure. I think we had a very, very dynamic set of presentations today. I know it took a little longer than usual, but I think that there was a very rich set of information that we've been able to glean, get very diverse perspectives from practitioners, decision makers that are in terms of management administrators, his excellency, operational research as Dr. Nasruddin, as well as more operational aspects in terms of what Dr. Muhammad Dawood mentioned in terms of how we use conventional, non-conventional water sources of such. And then we shifted gears more on the management side and the construction side and the private sector. What role do we play in terms of how do we manage this infrastructure, make sure that what we build is efficient, we're using the latest technology to drive our operations and make our operations more efficient. And then finally, I think Ms. Mirna's inputs were very, very critical in the sense that we are living in a time where climate variability and climate change have really complicated and exacerbated efforts to manage water and manage our infrastructure more sustainably. So how do we really think about, as we build this infrastructure, as we manage the services that this infrastructure provides us, how do we look at it from a lens and a framework that's a bit more comprehensive so that when this infrastructure is tested through various types of disasters, they're able to cope, they're able to manage, and they're able to deliver services sustainably. So with that, I think we are going to come to a close with this session. On that front, and I thank you very much. I thank the speakers very, very much again for the very set of conversations. And I think in that front, we really like to just say that, look, takeaway and summaries is integrated asset management is essential for long-term functionalities, resilience. Digital innovations is very, very important. And when we talk about digital innovations, yes, we have, or innovations in general, right? We are talking about technology, but we're also talking about very small things that, as Dr. Nasruddin mentioned, we don't need to think about large pieces of concrete. Small interventions coupled with agronomic practices, soil and management can really have just as equally powerful interventions on that front. So institutional capacity and regulatory capacity is very important. So it's very interesting to hear from the Arab contractors about the Center of Excellence and how there's an effort to really drive training of trainers. This is really excellent initiatives, and I hope that could be integrated. Just some insights. I think we've learned a lot on proactive maintenance and planning methodologies, success factors and lessons, and what's being done in various aspects, and then recommendations how we build resilient operations and governance, right? How do we embed them into strategies? How do we embed them into operations of that? So with that, I'd like to bring this session to a close. I'd like to thank the speakers once more, maybe a round of applause for our wonderful speakers. And thank you all very much once again. I appreciate that.